Hi, I'm Austin Lunyon. I want to thank you for tuning in. A lot of you have had questions about Wolf's Cry, a video I posted on, one of my first videos to post in a long time on YouTube. It was when I first got my double flute in F sharp from High Spirits. It was actually born here. The recording was in this racquetball court at the local university. It has such a wonderful sound in here that I just come in here to practice or try out my new flutes whenever I get a new flute from High Spirits. But when I played that song, actually, I came in here and it was completely dark in here because they were practicing for something out in the gym. So they had all the lights turned off. So I just came in here and was playing for the sake of sounds. And my girlfriend, when I was playing, said, why don't you try mimicking the sound of a wolf? Can you do it on that? And she loves wolves, and so do I, and says, I don't know, so let me see what I can do. And started recording what I was doing, and thus that song was born. So a lot of you were asking on how to do that. So I was just going to show you. I can't, it's a really long song, so I'm obviously not going to play it all on here. And quite frankly, I'm not sure I quite remember all that I did on that song. A lot of times when I record these songs, if I ever want to play them again, I have to go back to my original recording and listen to them over and over again so I can figure out what it was I did. Because a lot of times when I play these things, they're just coming straight out here and here. And I forget what I did at the time. It sounds glorious, but I forget what I did. I'm sure Odell and several other flute players will back me up on this. Sometimes when you play these wonderful melodies and then you go back to try and play them again, you never can quite reproduce the original recording that you did at that time. It's kind of annoying. So anyways, I want to talk about the technique of making the wolf cry, as it were. And I'm going to try and zoom in here. First of all, if you have the three drone holes drilled into your flute like I do, if you don't, I can really suggest it. It's well worth the money. They do a fantastic job as always. If you have these holes, they all three need to be covered. So if you don't have the holes, it's just your regular drone. And this can be done on any drone, really. And it doesn't really have to be done on a drone. It can be done on a single flute. It just sounds really cool for drone. So, and the technique, what you want to do to achieve that kind of wolf howl sound, you can do it. I would suggest going to someplace like a racquetball court, someplace that is really has a really nice echo to it, so you can hear yourself and hear the technique that you're doing. But what you're going to be doing, and what I did at the beginning of that film, is you raise your finger slowly off the hole, kind of like this. Just raise it slowly off, hold that out for a little bit, and then slowly bring it back down. So you're actually bringing the pitch of this top note down until you reach that bottom, and then I kind of do a little na-da-da like that, because the wolves kind of gurgle when they cut off their howling. At the same time, you want to start blowing softly, and when you get to the point where your finger is totally off that hole is when your volume should be the loudest. And then as you bring your finger back down, at the same time bring your volume back down. So it should sound something like this. let's see, so that little, I have no way of describing it, but a little, kind of like that. You ever listen to a wolf, how they just don't clamp off their sound? There's actually kind of it's almost like, kind of almost like that gurgling sound that you hear when they cut off their howls. At least I know the coyotes around my house and the wolves I've heard out in the wild do that. They just don't fade off into distance. A lot of times they have a wave to their howl at the end when they're cutting off. So that's basically the technique that I used in the song, and I basically just sat here and played that and kind of worked a melody into it, which you can hear. I did work on, sometimes I would stop the howling and just play just some sad droning notes to it to give it some form of a melody instead of just being all wolf cries. And you can work that in as you want. But let me show you what I did on the double flute. And actually the best howl sound that I got out of this flute was actually this finger right here. Once, of course, I've lifted up these fingers, but it was lifting up this finger that produced a really high-pitched, mournful tone. But it sounds best with the double flute, and so I'm just gonna play an example, and you can watch my fingers to see what I'm doing on it. So you see, excuse me, the longer you can hold this kind of area right here where you're almost down the note and where you actually touch the note, the longer you can draw that out, the longer you can draw down, bringing down your finger and kind of controlling your volume, the more realistic that wolf howl is going to sound. I mean, this one is my favorite because it's a beautiful, mournful sound. You hear a squeak there. You hear it a lot in my recording too. Sometimes when you're trying to cut off that air, it kind of squeaks a little bit. But that's basically the technique. And like I said, this can be done on any flute. It doesn't have to be a double flute. So if you have a single flute, don't worry about it. You can do that technique just like I showed you. But you just got to raise your finger up. So on the higher note, I kind of raise it up faster than on the lower note. But the trick is to get that, to make it sound like a real wolf, you have to bring down that finger just so slowly. And cut your volume off at the same time. And it takes some practice, but the results are well worth it. So that's how you achieve the wolf sound with High Spirits flutes. I want to thank y'all for watching, and if y'all have any questions, feel free to ask them of me. I may think about putting some more videos up on here, but the only reason I did these is because I know a lot of you were wondering how to do this, and if there were any flute tablature, which there isn't for the Wolf Cry one. So this is basically how you can produce your own Wolf Cry recordings, and go out and, believe it or not, I know my dog, I can get my dog to start howling if I start doing this enough of it, and I know that her howling gets the coyotes howling. You can start. It's interesting how these flutes can impact nature and the world around them. Just have fun with it. It does take some practice to get it, but once you get the hang of it, it's kind of easy to do. So, thank you for watching, and play on.